video is brought to you by my lovely patrons and by Nebula, the creator-owned streaming platform. Using my link is a great way to support me and help Nebula create even more original shows.
Hey kids, do you love Mario,
Sonic,
Zelda?
Pokemon?
Well, too bad! Video games are bad for your brain! All that dopamine goes straight to your calves! So come on down to Video Game Barn and definitely don't buy the hottest games at the lowest price. Hi, I'm Maggie Mae Fish. Everybody gets one conspiracy theory, and I'm here with you today to share mine. Have you seen these weird anti-vaping ads?
You've probably seen this anti-vaping PSA while binging your favorite TV show.
Vaping can deliver toxic metals like nickel and lead into your lungs. That's metal in your lungs.
My partner and I watched so many Laguna Beach episodes that we started mimicking it every time it came on, especially the catchphrase,
That's metal.
That's metal! And by that, I mean bad. I guess.
But around the time we got to the second season of The Hills,
I think you should come out here, right here, and come talk to me like that.
I couldn't help but feel that something was off about this anti-smoking ad. The ad was produced by the FDA's The Real Cost campaign. Between the half-minute version and the shorter 16-second version, this ad has a combined total of 60 million views, most of which are probably from being played as a pre-roll ad before other YouTube videos. Or this YouTube video. I guess we'll see. Growing up in the 90s, anti-tobacco public service announcements were inescapable. If you ever owned a hit clip, you probably remember being traumatized by this one.
I had my first cigarette when I was 13. When I found out how bad it was, I tried to quit. But I couldn't.
This ad aired in 1996 and was produced by the California Department of Public Health. After smoking all of her life, Debbie Austin developed cancer in her larynx, which then had to be removed. I'm old enough to remember a time when most adults I knew had either quit smoking or were trying to quit. And during this time, there was a sharp decline in cigarette usage. And as a kid watching these emotional, visceral campaigns, it didn't feel like a mystery as to why. In 2009, the American Journal of Public Health published a study on what makes an effective PSA. Emotionally evocative ads and ads that contain personalized stories about the effects of smoking and quitting hold promise for efforts to promote smoking cessation and reduce socioeconomic disparities in smoking. The Debbie Austin ad is a textbook example of effective messaging. Just as the 2009 study suggests, it features an emotional, personal story about the life-altering negative effects of smoking. Story-based ads are particularly effective because we learn narrative storytelling from such an early age. The final text on screen doesn't tell you what to think. Instead, it uses the tobacco industry's own words against them by simply saying, "The tobacco industry denies that nicotine is addictive."
How can they say that?
It positions the tobacco industry as your own personal antagonist. The tobacco industry is trying to manipulate you. You're not going to let them, are you? So if this is an example of PSAs that work, then what doesn't?
Just say no.
Just tell them illegal drugs are bad, so don't mess with them.
Illegal drugs are bad news. Don't mess with them.
Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign was an infamous PSA failure. As noted in Scientific American, merely telling participants to just say no to drugs is unlikely to produce lasting effects because many lack the needed interpersonal skills. Around the same time, the Los Angeles Police Department created the DARE program, or Drug Abuse Resistance Education, in which police officers would lecture students on everything from weed to angel dust. At the time, the LAPD was led by Chief Daryl Gates, who testified before the U.S. Senate that casual drug users ought to be taken out and shot, and argued that casual drug use is treason. Awesome. As Michael McGrath writes for The Guardian, much like abstinence-based sex education, DARE and Just Say No spread fear and ignorance instead of information, placing all responsibility on the individual while denying them the tools they need to make key decisions. Just Say No commercials often featured celebrities telling kids what to do.
I just want to shake some sense into you kids that are using drugs and thinking about using.
Or a guy I think most people would condone shoving into a locker.
Being original. Say no to peer pressure. Say no may be the smartest thing you ever do.
Here's one featuring our favorite boy.
See this cute little vial here? It's crack, rock cocaine, the most addictive form. What would I do if someone offered me these drugs? I'd tell them to take a hike.
You know who kids love obeying? A stiff old white guy. Scientific American notes, programs led exclusively by adults with little or no involvement of students as peer leaders, another common feature of DARE, seem relatively unsuccessful. Again, probably because students get little practice saying no to other kids. There have been many autopsies of why the DARE and Just Say No campaigns failed. It featured authority figures lecturing instead of peer-to-peer learning and practice. It ignored systematic issues that contribute to drug use and the realities of how and why people become addicts.
There's something out there. It's after kids everywhere. It entices them, confuses them, and can even kill them. That's right. Illegal drugs are everywhere.
Jesus, lady. The data shows that Reagan's catchphrase just doesn't work. Teens subjected to DARE remain just as likely to use drugs as those who receive no anti-drug messages. It also probably didn't help that one of the members of Reagan's own National Security Council, Oliver North, was working hand-in-hand with cocaine traffickers and narco-terrorists and using drug connections to further their foreign policy agenda. You know, maybe for Nancy and Ronald, it was less about defeating the drug trade and more about running it. America. In a New York Times article, visually dramatic though the ads were, evaluations of them were deeply discouraging. The billions spent from the late 1980s through the mid-2000s at best had no effect on drug use, research shows. At worst, exposure to the campaign might have actually increased the likelihood of adolescent marijuana use. Why was the original campaign such a failure? In part, it suffered from perverse incentives. Congress provided substantial money for the ads and was intensely interested in them at the height of the so-called war on drugs, creating internal pressure to make the ads appealing to members of Congress. But while ads that lectured or scared people about drugs might have seemed compelling to the modal member of Congress, a 60-year-old white male, they did not necessarily dissuade drug use by adolescents. In some cases, this kind of approach may make drugs more attractive as a sign of rebellion. Just ask my college boyfriend who wore his DARE jacket exclusively to smoke marijuana on the porch. Memories. And that brings me to another point that many of these ads don't take into consideration. And that's that teenagers are little stinkers. The more you try to tell them what to do, the more they protect themselves in a heavy coat of irony. Irony is an important part of how young people process the world and its many contradictions. How many people remember seeing this ad as a kid?
No one ever says, I want to be a junkie when I grow up.
And immediately turned to their sibling and said, I want to be a junkie when I grow up. Nancy's famous PSA was such a joke that Netflix used it to promote the first season of Narcos.
So to my young friends out there, say yes to your life. And when it comes to drugs, just say no. Just say no. Just say no.
The government's War on Drugs media campaign really reached its artistic peak and peak irony in 2002 when the Office of National Drug Control Policy released a couple of ads during the Super Bowl, arguing that anyone who uses drugs is directly supporting, and I kid you not, terrorism.
I help kids learn how to kill.
I was just having some fun, you know.
I help kill policemen.
I was just having fun.
I helped the bomber get a fake passport.
All the kids do it.
I helped kill a judge.
I helped blow up buildings.
My life, my body.
These spots were the biggest ad buy that the US government had ever done up until that point. A government spokesperson claimed that nobody disagrees with us that drug money supports terror. That's indisputable. But the ads were a huge waste of money, had little effect.
You killed me.
What?
There was a bomb. I was going to school.
What did that have to do with me?
You brought drugs.
And as president of the Ohio State Students for a Sensible Drug Policy pointed out at the time, if you really want to talk about supporting terrorism, buying oil, driving SUVs, that's the money that's funding terrorism. These commercials were playing less than 1 year after 9/11. Even the Nicolas Cage movie had more tact than that. But these ads were not made for you or I. They were made, as the New York Times article points out, for members of Congress to make them feel like they were doing something good. I could absolutely picture Paul Ryan giving a standing ovation to this work of art. So there has always been a tension between the idea that anti-drug or anti-smoking PSAs are designed to stop people from smoking, and the reality that they're just as often designed to make it look like politicians are helping people to stop smoking, while demonizing the very people that they say they're trying to help. Of course, commercials and PSAs can only go so far. A mantra of this channel is that media is a mirror. It can reflect and amplify messages and ideas, but it is also completely dependent on the audience's relationship to it. Emotional, personal, and graphic PSAs are not a solution to addiction, but they can be an effective part of a larger strategy aimed at improving people's material conditions. So, with all that in mind, let's revisit the modern "That's metal" ad, shall we? And try to answer the question, why are we making PSAs that do the exact opposite of what they're supposed to be doing? Just to recap, here's what we know about effective PSAs from that 2009 study. Anti-smoking messages that produce strong emotional arousal, particularly personal stories or graphic portrayals of the health effects of smoking, tend to perform well.
That's metal. That's metal.
This ad is not a personal story. I have no idea who this handsome man is or why he's talking to me. It's not emotionally arousing, at least not in a way that relates to the dangers of nicotine addiction. It's not a graphic portrayal of the health effects of smoking. It's literally a CGI monster that doesn't exist and honestly looks pretty fucking cool. And when you close your eyes, the line, "That's metal," sounds cool.
That's metal. If you vape, you could be inhaling toxic metals into your lungs.
I mean, you could. Maybe. I mean, who knows? If only someone was looking into this.
Vaping can deliver toxic metals like nickel and lead into your lungs.
It's not that e-cigarettes contain toxic chemicals, or vaping poisons you with toxic chemicals. It's that if you vape, these things can be delivered into your lungs. The language is passive and innocuous. The visuals are abstract and cool. Or metal, I guess. And it's not communicating the actual health risks of e-cigarettes. Compared to the imagery of the Debbie Austin ad, the imagery in this campaign is cartoonish. Like when we see a CGI recreation of this guy's lungs. Those don't look sick. They look like a hologram in a Star Wars TV show. The big metal dinosaur looks like a knockoff Transformers movie on the Sci-Fi Channel.
That's metal.
And also, isn't this how most superheroes are made anyways? Being infected by some toxic chemical and then boom, superpowers? If you wanted to design a PSA specifically to not be effective, I don't think you could do much better than this. Anyways, on to the next episode of The Hills.
You an idiot, you just yourself.
And it's not the only recent anti-tobacco ad that ignores everything we learned from the 2009 study about effective PSAs.
Sadness. Now in cookies and cream.
On one level, this ad is telling us that vaping increases depression and anxiety. But it's also a sexy voice enticing us with this tasty flavor.
Depression stick.
You definitely don't want those nummy flavors, do you? Ooh, yum, 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 yum. And the ad is directed towards people who are chronically depressed and anxious. Famous, of course, for making healthy, long-term decisions for their health. It definitely won't reach for an easy, quick hit of cookies and cream. And I'm speaking from experience here. Yum, 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 yum. Or this one.
Is this helping?
We've got another silky voice talking to us about vaping with a serene background and fun Adult Swim style animation. Everything about this ad, including the slogan, a play on the phrase breath of fresh air, is comforting. Or even fun. It's ironic, like Depression Barbie. In a world that is increasingly irony-pilled, these ironic ads written by adults just feel like they're doing nothing. Or worse, communicating the opposite of their supposed anti-tobacco message.
If you like anxiety, you'll love depression.
Man, this is stressing me out. Some cookies and cream sounds nice. See this hat and this fanny pack? Would you believe me if I told you that I got these both at a Truth.com booth at VidCon in 2019? This is literally a cloud of smoke. I genuinely love this hat, but it does look exactly like something someone would wear while vaping at a bus stop. And remember what that 2009 study told us about story and narrative? They're very important for PSAs because humans love stories and they effectively communicate cause and effect. Well, this fresh air ad ends with a feeling of closure, or even relief. The structure of commercials is usually that the first half introduces a problem, and the second half introduces the product, which solves the problem. By that logic, the solution to depression and anxiety, according to this ad, is vaping!
Vaping nicotine can actually increase feelings of stress and anxiety.
In contrast, going back to the Debbie Austin ad, it ends without resolution, which makes the message stick with you after the ad's over. Even when new anti-tobacco ads do try and recreate a gritty, persuasive narrative, we get spots like this. Totally incoherent. Borderline nonsense. And that could be anything. A tampon, a large tampon. I don't know, it just seems like she's hiding a tampon. And then there's this monstrosity. I hate this so much. This only makes me hate babies! And I love babies, but now I want that baby to fall into that alligator's mouth. What's a vape? I don't know. I just want that demon baby to die. There are anti-smoking ads and videos on these channels that seem more effective, but they get far less airplay than the ones that we've been discussing. These are the ads that these organizations choose to put their advertising budget behind. These are the ads they want us to watch, the ads they think are working, or the ones that they want us to think are working. Let's talk for a brief moment about advertising in the tobacco industry. In 1982, the Minnesota state government developed its first statewide tobacco control media campaign. The tobacco industry responded by producing its own education campaign called Helping Youth Decide, aimed at young people and presumably helping them decide. And maybe the wishy-washy title was a giveaway to its actual goal. The campaign was specifically designed to be ineffective and drown out the state's program. But wait, it gets worse. Because of these programs run by Big Tobacco and good old-fashioned backroom politics, by the mid-90s, the tobacco industry had convinced the Minnesota government to completely eliminate funding for the state's highly effective anti-smoking media campaign. Meanwhile, in California, the state's Department of Health Services began running an ad featuring footage of tobacco industry executives testifying in front of Congress.
I believe that nicotine is not addictive, and I too believe that nicotine is not addictive.
Now the tobacco industry is trying to tell us that secondhand smoke isn't dangerous.
Not addictive, not addictive.
In response, tobacco lawyers threatened to sue the state government for defamation. At first, stations were afraid to air the ad because it was so controversial. But the Department of Health Services finally got it on air in the fall of 1994 until the governor of California, Pete Wilson, ordered the ad to be removed. According to the National Cancer Institute's report, this reaction from television stations and the governor indicates the effectiveness of tobacco companies' influence in limiting the broadcast of strong anti-tobacco messages. The tobacco industry's goal has never been to defeat all anti-tobacco messaging. It was to defeat strong anti-tobacco messages, then flood the airways with messaging that is, on its surface, anti-tobacco, but isn't actually effective. The tobacco companies also tried to defund California's anti-smoking media, just as they had in Minnesota. In a memo from one tobacco company to another, an executive wrote, "The tobacco industry has decided that the timing is excellent for an attempt to divert money from the anti-smoking media campaign into other programs that are doomed to suffer because of the current fiscal crisis." Strategy sessions on this issue resulted in the conclusion that it is important that the tobacco industry not be identified as an instigator of any attempt to encourage special interests to seek redirection of the media money to other programs. It is agreed that under no circumstances can we visibly participate in this process. One of the sneakier ways that the tobacco industry got what it wanted was by privately supporting politicians like Pete Wilson, while those same politicians would publicly pretend to be their adversary, kayfabe style. When controversial industries like tobacco, lumber, and chemical companies donated to Wilson's campaign, he would make a big show of returning their contributions. But a 1990 memo between two tobacco industry lobbyists celebrated Wilson's performance. You will be pleased to know that Pete Wilson called Hamish Maxwell, chief executive of Philip Morris, to explain that he was doing this to protect Hamish as well as himself. You will be pleased to know that Pete is still pro-tobacco. Even big wins against the tobacco industry, like the 1998 Master Settlement Agreement or the 2009 Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, are often manipulated by tobacco lobbyists to work in their favor. The 1998 agreement gave big tobacco companies a virtual monopoly over the industry, and the 2009 Act basically eliminated any new competition to existing tobacco companies, to the point that it eventually became known as the Marlboro Protection Act. Way to go. So, taking into consideration tobacco executives' rich history of doublespeak, political maneuvering, media manipulation, and covert messaging.
What the f*** is going on?
As we've stated before, the "That's Metal" ad was created by the FDA's The Real Cost campaign. The Real Cost campaign is run by the FDA and has had several different initiatives from anti-smoking to anti-vaping and anti-smokeless tobacco aimed at rural male youths who are more likely to use dip and other forms of tobacco intake. The Truth Initiative was created as part of the massive 1998 Master Settlement Agreement, where tobacco companies had to pay states because they lied about the negative health effects of their products. Both campaigns are tentpoles for anti-tobacco initiatives in the United States. But both campaigns are heavily focused on campaigning. They're both marketing projects, which, as we pointed out, are important, but only a part of the solution to curbing smoking, vaping, and nicotine addiction. So where do these campaigns get their financing? Well, the Real Cost campaign is funded by the FDA, which is funded by our tax dollars, which is then implemented by a government, which we have already learned can be heavily influenced by tobacco companies. And the FDA is also heavily influenced by whoever is heading the executive branch. Like this guy, Stephen Hahn, who was appointed by Donald Trump and pushed hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for COVID. So, only the best. And as for truth.com, well, the description on their website is, weirdly defensive. We are not funded by big tobacco, no matter what your friend's cousin told you. Barrett got some bad information or made an assumption. And you know what they say about assumptions? They belong on Reddit and Reddit alone. Yeah, very, how do you do, fellow kids energy. Anyways, it goes on to give some historical context. Basically, a massive thing called the Master Settlement Agreement happened when 46 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 U.S. territories got together and sued the major tobacco companies to try and recover some of the billions of dollars caring for sick smokers. The tobacco companies settled out of court, signing an agreement to pay the states a certain amount of money, basically refunding some of what they'd spent. And the states then used small amounts of that money for all sorts of things, including roads and Truth Initiative. Truth Initiative provides strategic direction and funding for the Truth campaign, not big tobacco. In 2003, Truth Initiative received what is likely the final payment to the National Public Education Fund established by the Master Settlement Agreement. Okay, so according to them, we sued tobacco and got roads and commercials. That paragraph is so dense and weirdly worded, you'd almost forget that millions of people died from smoking-related cancer, or that 30% of cancer deaths are still related to smoking. Wait a minute. This says their funding from that settlement ended in 2003. 2003 was 20 years ago! Who's been making these websites and vape cloud fanny packs for the past 20 years? In 2022, the Truth Initiative spent over $113 million. But their investment portfolio from that same year, including US stocks, hedge funds, and private equity funds, was valued at over $700 million. I'm no expert in nonprofits, but looking at financial statements for other large nonprofits like Doctors Without Borders, Habitat for Humanity, or the Trevor Project, their investment portfolios don't dwarf their operating expenses. Most of their money is being spent every year towards their goal. It'd be one thing if the Truth Initiative's financial statements looked like this and their campaigns were incredibly effective. But the Truth's website is purposefully misleading about its own effectiveness. This past August, they put out a press release titled, Truth Initiative announces results from first study to show relationship between anti-vaping campaign awareness and reduced e-cigarette use among young people. With that headline, you'd think it's saying that the relationship is that the campaign is directly causing a reduction in e-cigarette use. But surprise, surprise, when you read the study itself, it says, the causal direction between individual level exposure to the ads and behavior cannot be inferred. So, yeah. For Truth Initiative, there's a relationship between their ads and people not smoking, in the same way that I have a relationship with that guy I see at the coffee shop every morning but never speak to. The overall impression I'm left with is that things like thetruth.com or The Real Cost are not campaigns that effectively stop people from smoking or vaping. Instead, they're campaigns to convince us that these campaigns are effective, and that politicians are doing their job, and that cigarette usage among teens is down. And if that's the case, then they actually do have a huge incentive to keep it going, as you can see from their comically gigantic investment portfolio.
We are in the honeymoon stage.
The Truth Initiative's $700 million in investments is technically our money. It's the money we were all owed for our friends, aunts, uncles, grandparents, moms, and dads who suffered the negative health effects of smoking because of the lies pushed by tobacco companies. Of course, education and prevention are a big part of public health advocacy. And at their best, that's what organizations like Truth and The Real Cost are supposed to achieve. But even if they were running ads that follow the research about the psychology behind PSAs, it's still only a small part of the larger picture if we're looking to create a society where people have the resources to be healthy. Even a perfectly crafted ad with a personal, emotional story can't intervene with the things that research tells us contributes to drug addiction. Things like abuse, the stress of living in a capitalist society, and chronic pain in a country with a broken healthcare system. It's not a coincidence that a lot of the research I found while studying this topic was about how we're failing to address the opioid crisis in the same way the Just Say No campaign failed, and the same way that we are failing once again to combat nicotine addiction. Because remember that chart that I showed at the beginning of the video? The one that showed decreased nicotine use? Well, here's the rest of that chart showing the massive success of e-cigarettes. And right there, in 2009, was when the study came out about the effectiveness of good PSAs. For the sake of time, I won't be getting into the entire e-cigarette vaping congressional hearings, but if you want to, you should check out The Vaping Fix. It's a great podcast and a great supplement to this video. When the creators of Juul first started advertising their product, they wanted to, or claimed they wanted to, combat big tobacco and entice cigarette smokers to try their less harmful, smokeless alternative. So they made brightly colored ads with happy-looking young people, which turns out is really just appealing to teens. And actually, they kind of look exactly like these ads that are supposedly telling me not to use vapes. And to top it all off, Juul is now owned by a big tobacco company. The tobacco industry has been at this a very, very long time. And settlements that cost hundreds of millions of dollars, to them, at most, are an inconvenience. In 2018, the 6 largest cigarette manufacturers made $55 billion. But they haven't had to pay the Truth Initiative since 2003, so woohoo! And since the settlements in the late 90s, there have been thousands of more lawsuits against tobacco products, which gave hundreds of millions more dollars to the states, which once again gives politicians a large pile of money to control, who are, as we have learned, easily swayed by those same large tobacco companies. It's enough to make you believe that somebody wants it this way. So, please remember, everyone gets one conspiracy theory. Here's mine. Are these organizations fighting the tobacco industry? Or are they spending our money on a campaign to make us feel like we're fighting the tobacco industry? Ah, man, I don't know. I'm gonna slip my Dare jacket on and smoke.
I'm Dan Kay from Dan's Bake Sale, and I'm here in Old Town Square, Fort Collins, the scene of my bake sale. It was the largest bake sale ever. You can own this hat and this teal t-shirt.
Do you have a special performing skill that you can share with people that have been institutionalized in places like hospitals, convalescent homes?
And while you're weaning yourself off of Pac-Man's little white balls, remember that you also definitely don't want to hear about this exclusive, sexy offer from Nebula.
That's right. For a limited time only, Nebula is offering lifetime memberships. Pay once and get access to everything Nebula has to offer for the rest of forever. Never worry about monthly payments again, or updating your credit card after losing your old one. Nebula is setting their sights on even bigger and better projects, and using my link below to sign up directly helps independent creators like myself. And if memberships aren't in your price range, don't worry. Nebula also offers annual subscriptions at a hefty discount. Whatever your budget, Nebula's got you covered.
So, whatever you do, don't click that nummy link right now.
Thank you so much for watching. This one was a real doozy, and I can't thank my patrons enough for supporting me. If you liked the video, definitely don't click the like button. Be sure you're subscribed to the channel and comment below with the PSA that's burned into the back of your brain. If you'd also like to support me in making more videos like this, head over to patreon.com/Maggie Mae Fish and insert fish pun here. Nailed it. And thank you to everyone watching over on Nebula. I've got new merch dropping soon, so keep an eye out for that. And until next time, save Martha from big tobacco.